This is a company filled with intelligent, responsible, experienced, qualified people here and across the region who believe in America and believe in American values. Meet with them. Hear them out first.
Welcome back to Real Clear Politics on Sirius XM. I'm Andrew Walworth, and our next guest is Jeff Gedmin. He is the president and CEO of the Middle East Broadcast Networks. It's one of several international networks that operate under the umbrella of the U.S. Agency for Global Media, which over the weekend was the target of an executive order signed by Donald Trump calling for the elimination of the agency and its constituent parts, which include the Voice of America and the radio network that Jeff runs. So Jeff, I imagine this is a busy day for you. Thank you for taking the time. Welcome to the program.
Happy to be with you. Thank you, Andy.
So let's just start with the state of play right now. The New York Times reports that the VOA, that their broadcasts in Asia and the Middle East have gone silent or are just playing music. What's happening on your network, which, as we said before, covers the Middle East?
Happily, Andy. So VOA is part of the federal government, and they've gone silent. They've gone dark. They're federal government. Company I'm running right now, Middle East Broadcasting Networks, television, digital, Arab Middle East, is not part of the federal government. It's a grantee of the federal government. And we received on Saturday morning from Kari, the president's advisor, what's called a termination of our grant agreement. What that means for us is her and the federal agency's intention to close us down. We want to have a conversation about that with her, with the Congress, perhaps with outside counsel too, as to why this, why now, and whether it's entirely lawful. So that's where we are. But today, on Monday, St. Patrick's Day, we're operating Bureaus of the Middle East, headquarters in Springfield, Virginia.
Excellent. So the show goes on, at least for now. So what the administration is doing, I guess, is trying to terminate your grant, or have notified you that they've terminated your grant. But my understanding is that in the budget that was passed on Friday, your grant was approved. So what explains what happened in 12 hours or 24 hours?
Well, that's a great question, Andy. It is my view that this is part of a larger argument and battle in Washington right now, where the President of the United States, in my judgment, wants to expand executive authority, diminish the role of the Congress, and challenge courts, if I may say. And we're now part of that larger argument. So what happened? Congress passes on Friday night a continuing resolution, which in effect says, and did say, you all, we want to fund you through the end of the calendar year. Point one. Point two, Kari, the advisor to the president who functionally leads USAGM, says Saturday morning, no, you don't. We've got it from here. We're going to kill you, in layman's language. Now, in my judgment, there are two problems with that. One is congressional intent. You alluded to that. And other, well, I'm not an attorney, but our grant agreement, I'm told, can be canceled if we're in material breach of the agreement. But we're not, and it wasn't alleged. So you see already it's a political problem, and it's a legal problem, but also, if I may say, for those who are concerned about the role we play in the world, there's a intellectual political argument here at play too.
Yeah, let's talk about that because, Jeff, I've known you for a number of years. You're one of the most serious thinkers about foreign policy that I know. And I just think you are sort of uniquely qualified. You're in the middle of this, but you can also step back and just look at what is the role of public diplomacy, as we call it, in today's era. And are the radios and the television stations run by federal government under U.S. Under this, what used to be called U.S. Information Agency, I guess. What's their role right now, and can it be done more successfully than it is being done right now?
So to the first point, Andy, it is changing rapidly, and technology is playing a major role. Syndrome, we know all that. I think the question is, if you see these as instruments aligned with the broad foreign policy objectives of the United States, can you do this entirely with the private sector? My conclusion is no. So then, what role for government? And I think you can quibble and quarrel and argue about that. My view is that if you're setting this up today from scratch, it probably wouldn't look like this, actually. That's
Mm.
the truth. But my argument to Kari Lake and the Congress, insofar as we have naysayers over on the Hill, is reform, yes, restructure, yes, if you wish, reduce, yes, but I wouldn't eliminate it lock, stock, and barrel. And if I did move in that direction, I'd want a much more deliberative process and a lot more due diligence. This feels like an act of urgent what? Good heavens, I shouldn't say the word vandalism, but it doesn't sound terribly reflective and strategic to me.
And have you talked to Kari Lake about this? And if you haven't, what would you say to her?
I would say I have not. She's declined to meet with me and the president CEO of RFERL and Radio Free Asia, all multi-platform, all digital, even though these old-fashioned names. I would say, Kari, we're open to reform, we're open to restructure, we're open to efficiencies and reduction, but come visit. Meet the editors, meet the producers, meet the journalists, look at the audience research, look at the impact we're having. And if we together want to work it and improve it, we're so open to that conversation. But meet, listen, learn, study first, I'd say.
Yeah. You're listening to Real Clear Politics on Sirius XM. I'm Andrew Walworth. I'm here with Jeff Gedmin. He is the president and CEO of the Middle East Broadcast Networks. Are you surprised at all that Kari Lake, who came in with as a broadcaster and seemed to be someone who was supportive of the mission, at least, has done a 180 on this?
A little bit. I think she's been in the job about 2 weeks, and I certainly sympathize with her campaign to get after waste and fraud and abuse and make things more efficient and impactful. I'm a little bit surprised at the suddenness of the decisions on Saturday, the decisions she made after Congress decided that Congress wanted to fund us. And I'm a little bit surprised as a journalist. She is in what seems to be, I'm making some assumptions here, a lack of curiosity about who we are, what we do, and how we operate. This, in the end, it's one of several. This is a company filled with intelligent, responsible, experienced, qualified people here and across the region who believe in America and believe in American values. Meet with them, hear them out first.
And what has been the reaction from our adversaries overseas?
Alarming and predictable. And I laugh because it's so painful. So for MBN, we are monitoring and we see, lo and behold, that Iranian-backed militia, for example, in Lebanon and in Iraq are celebrating. They say, we knew the Americans are feckless, and unreliable, and opportunistic. We knew that they don't stick to things. And for the people who work for them, we know they betray them and leave them vulnerable on the field. Well, predictable, alarming, and I think tragic.
And let's talk about the Hill then for a minute. People have gone after the radios before, but there's been a pretty strong bipartisan consensus that they should continue on the Hill. Are you getting any signals from the Hill that someone will ride to the rescue?
I don't know. I'm looking for that rescue, Andy. But we have a number of strong allies on the Hill on both sides of the aisle. There's no doubt about that. But think of the pieces of the puzzle. So number one, there are 100 things going on, pressing, compelling, and big. That's number one. Number two, the Hill is the Hill, and its interaction with the White House is its interaction with the White House. But somewhere in the background, or somewhere is part of this theater piece or opera is DOGE, right? That's Elon Musk's so-called Department of Government Efficiency. This letter from Kari Lake came on a Saturday after DOGE had been at USAGM for 2 weeks. Because they operate, in my view, in opacity, not in transparency, what role do they play in advising separate from Congress and separate from the administration and separate but related to Kari Lake. We don't have a window on it, but it comes into play somehow. So Congress, I think there's considerable support. Otherwise, they would have decided we're not in the continuing resolution on Friday. They would have just said, zero these guys out. They didn't. So there is support there. We have to translate it into action and influence and transaction.
So we've got about a minute left here, but I just want to know from your point of view, because you've been there, what, under a year now, 11 months, I think, something like that. And you have put in reforms. You've moved to streamline. You've sort of anticipated, I think, some of the management issues that people have identified. Just tell us quickly what you've done in the last 11 months that you think helped correct the ship and why it should continue.
Andy, thank you. So I think editorially, we're picking our game up. We're doing a good job. We're telling the American story in ways that private media and independent social media activists can't quite do. And indeed, thank you for saying that on the reform side. Here, 11 months on the job, we did a first restructure in the fall. I'm sorry, it's painful. We let 200 colleagues go. We ended physical presence of a number of bureaus in the region. We reduced our workforce by 25%. We saved the American taxpayer $20 million. We can do more. We can be efficient, even more impactful. Indeed, if I may say, at this point in the conversation, we'd like a little credit. I'm not going to say we were DOGE before DOGE, but we were cutting, restructuring, and I'll tell you, we did it strategically and humanely as possible.